We're in the information age, but facts are in short supply. Reject the noise, ask bold questions, and pursue the truth with FBI whistleblowers and founding suspendables Garrett O'Boyle and Steve Friend. This is the American Radicals Podcast.
It is the American Radicals Podcast on a Saturday. The weekend is here, guys. Congratulations, you made it through. Time to just put your feet up and relax, or I don't know, run around like a chicken with your head cut off and doing errands and chores around the house. Whatever you're doing, we're grateful that you're here and we're part of your weekend, as we are on every Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, 10:30 on rumble.com/amradpod. Remind you, please just give us a like. Click the thumbs up, smash the thumbs up, whatever your nomenclature of preference is. If you want to follow the channel, that'd be great too. Trying to expand. You can also track us on the YouTube channel, which we're setting up. I'm still trying to get the Instagram. I'm sorry, I'm not with the kids these days. It takes me a long time to figure things out. You can also track us on iTunes and Spotify and iHeart there. Subscribe so you can get the episodes when we drop them on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. All of that out of the way, guys. I'm going a little bit fast because Garrett's going to have to jet out a little bit early on the American Radicals Podcast today, but we want to make sure we get his thoughts on the Saturday grab bag, which is going to be a tradition like no other, just an assortment of different stories, maybe some of the things that you caught, probably a lot of things that you didn't. We're going to talk about the tech bros and how they want to move on, evolve past the cell phone, and maybe give you some sort of like chip implant. Sounds a lot like the mark of the beast. I'm sure Garrett has his thoughts on it. Marijuana, the devil's lettuce, is damaging the heart, whether or not you eat it or smoke it. We have the FDA, which still really loves the coronavirus jab. Bill Gates has now announced he's giving away his entire fortune to Africa, but could be some nefarious reasons behind that. And now white people are going to be able to sue for being discriminated against per the Supreme Court. So lots of different assortment of stories, all different subjects. I just gave you a little bit of a preview. There are plenty of others that we're going to churn and burn through today. And let's bring on Garrett to get his thoughts on the day. I hope that he's enjoying his weekend. We're going to have an abbreviated GOB actual experience today, but grateful nonetheless to have your input, particularly on the mark of the beast. So without further ado, let's bring this one up, which you actually brought to my attention, and grateful to have you alert me to the Daily Galaxy, which I'm going to have to start reading because it just sounds like a Star Wars newspaper. But it's entitled Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Sam Altman announced the end of the smartphones, but Tim Cook isn't playing along. Could it be because Tim Cook runs the iPhone factories and doesn't want to lose his business? I don't know. Let's dig in. So for Elon, Zuckerberg, and Altman, and Bill Gates, the next wave of innovation doesn't involve a sleeker phone. It replaces it altogether. Elon Musk is the founder of Neuralink. It's advancing the concept of brain-computer interfaces, which allow users to communicate with machines using only their thoughts. According to the company, 2 human subjects have already received the implants. Can you imagine being one of those guys? Bill Gates is championing this thing called Chaotic Moon. It's a Texas-based company developing electronic tattoos. Mark Zuckerberg is placing his future on augmented reality glasses, and Tim Cook is sticking with what works. Now, the iPhone 16 incorporates advanced AI, but maintains a familiar form. Apple's strategy focuses on incremental innovation, improving existing products while introducing new technologies like AI gradually. I mean, we're going to get there. The iPhone will be inserted into your forearm at some point, but not quite yet. You scared?
I don't know if I'm scared. I don't think I'm scared because it's like, well, of course, this is where we're headed. We're all going to be cyborg, combinations of humans and tech. And also, though, at the same time, if you're holding Apple stock, you might want to sell because as Satan amplifies, so does the world. And so I think Zuckerberg is just look at the guy. He's clearly further down the satanic cult line than Tim Cook. But to me, yeah, man, I saw this headline, read through this, because we had just been Well, I guess flippantly, we mentioned the mark of the beast, or maybe we shouldn't even be flippant about it. But sometimes we are a little tongue in cheek about some of this tech stuff. And so when I saw that and read through it, I was like, dude, this is totally paving the way. Just another example of the path that is being paved to lead to something like a mark of the beast. And with everything we've been through the last 4 years, roughly, actually 5, if you go back to the 5.5, if you go back to the beginning of COVID and whatnot, even in peak COVID era, everybody's at home and scrolling Instagram and YouTube and finding all sorts. Lots of people were red pilled, some were black pilled during those years, and I think a lot of people even then were saying, "Oh, the mRNA jab is the mark of the beast." I wasn't one of those people because it's like I don't think it's going to work quite like that, and by no means am I like a Book of Revelation scholar, but I think if you study it enough, regardless of where you land on what type of eschatology, that's the theological term for your belief system regarding the end of things, the end times, because there's a couple different, I don't know, methodologies to that people tend to lean towards for whatever reason. But I don't think it's going to be in some type of fake vaccine. I think it's going to be more along this type of line where it's some type of headgear, and as we've talked about many times, eventually it's going to be some type of chip. And also, though, I'm open to being wrong about that because I don't know for sure. So
I mean, the Tim Cook wanting to resist on that because the iPhone success as a tool and so many people have it and use it. You could see how it's almost like the guy who manufactures horse carriages saying like, no, we don't want to move to automobiles. But he also referenced the incremental innovation. And you say like, look, you've even mentioned having the little bracelet, the Fitbit that's saying like, well, look, it's monitoring my health. It's telling me how many steps I'm taking, what my caloric intake and output is. It's good for me. I can sync it up to my health insurance and maybe get a deduction on my health rates. And then I can just go to the store and swipe my wrist because it's linked to my bank account. And you're saying that that's incremental and we're going to reduce the friction little by little. The tattoo thing, though, and I think you bring a different perspective than I'm going to have on this because I'm not cool enough for tattoos. I embraced the fact a long time ago. I looked at what the good Lord gave me and said, there's no sort of additions that are going to make this thing look any more tough and bad. It'll just like a poser. But you got some really cool ink. How do you feel about the smart tats and maybe a possibility of you get a tattoo and then as you get older, you say like, hey, maybe it was a really bad idea to have that python strangling a clown on my arm. I want to get my daughter's name instead. And if it were smart tattoos, you could maybe like program it to reorient into something different. Like that sounds like probably a good idea. You can make bad life choices into good life choices.
hmm um, to me, it's just another interesting facet of all of this technology where it's headed. I don't want any type of digital tattoo or whatever it's gonna be because, well, the biggest thing is I don't trust these people. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. So I don't know.
I mean, I was kind of digging through it, and I'll actually link this in the second story because apparently you and I having hashtag resistance to wanting the mark of the beast, we're in
Mhm.
the vast, vast minority
Yeah.
because Elon Musk over at Neuralink, uh, they just raised $650 million in new capital because people
Dude.
just love. I mean, they've already had 2 people put the chip in,
You
so
know, with the fallout that Elon and Trump has had, maybe Elon can share some of that cheddar with us because we need it.
man,
I don't know if I want to be a Neuralink guinea pig though.
well, there's some interesting information here because I know the name Neuralink. I know this is something that Musk is advocating for, but he wants to put people on Mars because he thinks that AI is going to take over the planet. So Neuralink said fresh capital will help the company bring its technology to more patients and develop new devices. It's not clients, it's patients. They view this as a medical procedure. Quote, it's going to deepen the connection between the biological and artificial intelligence, unquote. The initial aim of Neuralink is to help patients with severe paralysis restore some independence. Well, I think that's probably really good.
hmm
One of the capabilities that Musk has repeatedly highlighted is the ability to restore vision to blind patients. So again, like these are innovations that are going to improve quality of life. They're going to be objectively good for people. If you're blind and now you can see, I mean, I really don't have a problem with that. Just, I mean, you'd have to really talk me into it being a problem, giving vision to the blind. But I think that there's also recognition of the slippery slope, right? There is bad with every good, and there's going to be downstream consequences, or there's going to be some sort of negative ramifications. And are we really thinking through the entire thing before we put chips into people? And that got me along the lines of thinking, like, what sorts of technological innovations might I sign on for if I didn't weigh, if after having waited, say, like, all right, well, I mean, I'm willing to accept some of the risk. I mean, I was thinking, well, maybe we could 3D print organs for people, so we wouldn't have to have organ harvesting be this like horrible crime that goes on, and then also have people, good people, waiting on the list for essentially someone to die. I mean, it's kind of a morbid concept. What if we could 3D print an organ that was made out of your own genetic material, so that you're not going to have an organ rejection, and it'll just be like created? So I think that there's definitely a place for these sorts of innovations. But when it comes to the chip in the body, there's something about it I just can't get beyond it.
Right. For to me, and again, I'm open to being wrong here, but I think it's your discernment that leads you down that path. I think it's very similar with the COVID jab, where for whatever reason, a small minority of people were like a super hard no. We were in that crowd, and because there was something lingering in the back of our mind or in our soul. Maybe it's the Holy Spirit kind of leading you down that path, saying, I'm just not there, even if I can't pinpoint why. And then, you use your intellect to learn and discover why or why not you may not be on board with some of these things. But I'm with you here. And, I wonder if, I don't know when they started giving people, metal plates in, to replace their bones and things like that. Were there people then who were like, I'm not, that's wrong, that's evil, that's bad? I don't know, maybe because there is a lot of upside to some of this technology, some of this innovation, because, well, you alluded to it, the path to hell is paved with good intentions. When Elon or whoever's talking about this new technology being used for good and helping people who might have paralysis, like, that sounds great. But then, like you mentioned too, what's the nefarious side of this technology? And it kind of even made me think of something simple like going to a sporting event. In Milwaukee, we've got a brand new stadium. It's where the Bucks play, the Pfizer Forum. I've been there a couple times. Last time we went was for, I think it was for a hockey game. I don't know, whatever it was for. And I'm like, yeah, let's get some snacks or whatever. They don't take cash, and even just walking around there, it got me thinking, like, oh yeah, the next step is going to be a chip. We've talked about the new type of credit cards. You can just tap it. It's super quick. Well, next is going to be like a wristband type of thing, or like your Fitbit, like we've talked about before, your cell phone. I mean, a lot of people use Apple Pay or whatever already. And on one hand, it's like, this is very, it's very easy to use. It's fast. I don't have to worry about somebody snatching my wallet. Now, you do got to worry about somebody snatching your phone, but even the tickets, there's not even paper tickets. It's all just a QR code on your phone now. And all of it is, maybe Tim Cook is right, it's more incremental. And where's that going to be in 10 years? Is it going to be a chip in your wrist or on your forehead? It might
that
be.
racket where they charge you the convenience fee for a paperless ticket. It
Yeah.
saved you money, you jerks.
Right.
Ripping me off. and like, I'm also, before we leave this topic, thinking about the best example we saw with the vaccines was that not everybody along the chain, I believe, was a nefarious actor. There were people developing a vaccine that truly believed, like, this is going to save lives. I don't think that everybody there was evil. But when the push came that you didn't have a choice, that's when there was a control element that was screaming neon signs to us saying, all right, this is wrong. Something about this doesn't make sense. So like when inevitably the chips come out and it will hear you have to get it, or your children have to get it. Otherwise they'll be at a disadvantage in society. Like they won't be admitted to school, or they're not going to be able to get a job unless they get the Neuralink or whatever the insert is, so they can have instant access to whatever Sam Altman wants out there. That to me is going to be the ultimate. And I continue to believe that they're just not patient enough at this point. Like Tim Cook might be the most evil among them because he seems to be embracing the incrementalism. The other ones are just out there screaming like, nope, we're going to completely transition. You got to put the chip in your arm. Right? Yep. And you threw out the billionaire beefing that's going on between Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Let's just briefly touch on that.
You hate to see it, but you love to see it.
I mean, I don't care very much. I mean, I care from the element of if they cancel all the SpaceX contracts, I'm not going to be able to see the rocket launches from my house, which I do get entertainment out of. And there's people's jobs that are on the line out here. But at the same time, look, things end poorly. Otherwise, they wouldn't end. Famous line from Cocktail. Got our movie reference in, right? But I want to talk about instead of Elon Musk, because he's doing the character assassination, which I believe the tweet he put out has been taken down now.
Yeah.
There's somebody who's actually put threats to the president, or at least his family members. I did not see this reported just about anywhere. I saw this New York Post story about some maniac who has now jumped the wall over at Mar-a-Lago twice since Donald Trump became president a second time. Have you seen this reported?
No, I have not seen
it. Here's his picture, all right? This dude, he's 23. He was nabbed by Secret Service agents earlier this week after hopping the wall at President Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort. He told officers he wanted to spread the gospel to Trump and also marry his 18-year-old granddaughter.
Oh, gosh.
Okay. Wednesday marked at least the second time. So we don't know. It could be more. This dude, his name is Anthony Reyes, has been caught trying to get inside the exclusive club, with previous instances occurring on New Year's Eve. So I guess it occurred before Donald Trump became president, New Year's Eve being before Inauguration Day, but at that point he'd at least been elected. The threats are from all over, right? I mean, and it's not just politically derivative. This guy's probably an emotionally disturbed individual if he's now tried. My question is, he got over the wall once, and that was 6 months ago. How is he out and able to do this again?
He shouldn't be. This, of course, we've got a crazy person who's jumping the fence. The piece that troubles me, Steve, is he wants to spread the gospel to Donald Trump. You know, I do too. But there might be a better way than trying to jump the fence and also to claim you want to marry his granddaughter. That you're a little crazy there, my guy. But also, for the second time, how come we didn't hear about this the first time? Where was that story? And I kind of want more details. Like, dude, why'd you come back? We told you not to do this again. Because now the punishment is only going to get stiffer, I would imagine. I don't know what the statute of... I mean, what are they going to get him on? Trespassing? Or is there something more because Trump is the president? I'm not quite sure, because he's not admitting to wanting to attack Donald Trump. He just wants to spread the good news, which, quite frankly, Donald Trump needs, because his spiritual advisor, Paula White, is a charlatan and an apostate. So I mean, yes, Donald Trump needs the gospel, but my guy, you can't be hopping the fence at Mar-a-Lago.
I think it's a good point. Between Paula White and the crazy woman that gave the initial service when the Trump Vance administration came in, who came in the front door, right? She went in and started talking about how we need to be all about the LGBTQ rainbow kamikazes and the illegal aliens. Like, they didn't vet her very well. And I think at the time you said, really? Like, you could put me up there and I'll give you 15 good minutes.
Yeah.
All right, back into the grab bag. And we are in a different point in time entirely. And I get reminded of this just about every day that I'm banging away on my miles out here in the land of Milk and Honey, running to the ocean to go enjoy the view of the dolphins. Sorry, Garrett. Don't worry, our palate cleanse today will be a bang on me, not you. But I can't help but notice, particularly when it's more in the winter months, when I don't have to go super early in the morning, otherwise I'll melt because it just becomes too hot. I can sleep in maybe a little bit longer when the sun comes up. It feels really nice. But if it is late enough in the day that people are doing commute to work, it seems like every single car smells like weed. And
Is weed legal there?
medical, right?
Oh,
They
okay.
tried to push that through the vote, and there's $100 million lobby that came through, and we were able to resist it in the last election. I don't know if they'll be able to
Yeah,
resist it yet
it won't
again.
stand very
Yeah,
long.
and the decriminalization of weed. All right, let's talk about that element because I know you were a patrol officer, as was I. Like, if I pop somebody and I smelled it on a traffic stop, like, someone's going to jail, and
Yep.
that is completely out the window at this point. It's considered to be like, well, come on, man, it's 2025. Everybody's high. But there is an element of health here that I found this report from JAMA, which lost all credibility from coronavirus, but I don't know, maybe we'll give them a pass for this particular issue. And this is a study that was done on marijuana use and the damage that it does to the heart. The study examined potential connection between THC smoking and ingestion. So we're talking about smoking and the eating, right? The brownies or the edibles, whatever it is. And the connection is to this condition, endothelial dysfunction, where the inner lining of blood vessels, the endothelium, is unable to function properly and could lead to some cardio problems, cardiovascular issues. Endothelial dysfunction, even in otherwise healthy people, is an indication of unhealthy arteries and increased risk of cardiovascular disease later in life. So, according to this study from JAMA, the Journal of American Medicine, researchers observed that marijuana smokers, the devil's lettuce, they showed 42% reduction in vascular function, while THC edible users experienced a 56% reduction. So actually smoking it's preferable for heart health
Huh.
than eating it, right?
Wouldn't have guessed that one.
Quote, the blood vessels don't seem to care if the smoke is from tobacco or marijuana.
Hmm. That is an interesting study.
So maybe there's a element of health here, not just personal autonomy and personal freedom. And where am I hurting you by smoking the weed? All right, I have to smell that smell, so there is an actual community impact, right? There's a quality of life issue if it always smells like a skunk is dead on the side of the road when I'm trying to just be healthy and work on my cardiovascular fitness. So I am angry at it, and I'm loath to accept that people can drive while under the influence of marijuana, which we can't make you have a breathalyzer. Like we can
Right.
breathalyze you for alcohol and say like, hey, look, you had a drink, but we have determined as a society that you're under the limit. You're not impaired to a level where you can't drive safely. But we don't have that function when it comes to marijuana, right?
Right. You can get a DRE, which I'm sure some of you out there who are in law enforcement or follow law enforcement news, you know what that is. It's a drug recognition expert. And there are different sobriety type tests, field sobriety type tests they can do. But ultimately, you got to get blood. You got to get the blood work, which is something that law enforcement does for alcohol as well. Like even if you blow in a PBT, which is a preliminary breath test, and you're above the legal limit, which I think nationwide now is 0.08 everywhere, but you still have to get the blood and then send that off to the lab to get um, analysis done to truly determine what the blood alcohol content level is. And that's the same if you believe they're under the influence of any type of drug. And that's to me is what this really comes down to. Like, if you want to damage your heart, fine, go ahead. I don't really care that much. Same with alcohol. You want to damage your kidneys and liver or whatever else because you drink too much. And I mean, that's, you got to be like a raging alcoholic if at that point. But what it boils down to for me is the actual safety measures for everybody else around you, because you shouldn't, just like you shouldn't be driving drunk, you shouldn't be driving high, regardless of what you're high on, marijuana, cocaine, heroin, whatever. But yeah, those drugs are a lot more difficult to determine if somebody is under the influence now, like Steve was mentioning. And the Supreme Court themselves have called the odor of marijuana, they have called it an unmistakable odor. So cops are trained on how
Oh
to,
yeah. I
and,
own that car. I
yeah,
own that
right.
car as soon as I smell that smell.
Uh-huh. And usually you can smell it. You're walking up and you're like, oh yeah, I can smell it. Whoever's in here is getting pulled out today. Send me one more. And yeah, I mean, that to me, that's the big piece is, okay, you're waking and baking instead of waking and running like Steve. And now you're on your way to work and you're smelling it all over. And that's the critical piece is you're putting other people at risk then.
Where do you come down ideologically for the sobriety checkpoint? Now, away from the marijuana to the alcohol, where
Uh,
essentially there's a sobriety checkpoint conceptually, so folks know you have to submit to the test. So the presumption is that you're guilty until proven innocent, because if you refuse to take the test, then you can be detained, you can be arrested, right? You can be taken to jail effectively for it. You must prove you are innocent in the land of the allegedly free, where effectively criminal justice system is based on innocent until proven guilty. But as a society, we effectively said, except on this one, we'll give the
right.
police authority to assume you're guilty and you must prove you're innocent.
Yeah, I think it's a Fourth Amendment violation, and I think it's a travesty that any state or municipality has those. And I'm sure people, well, you just said that people shouldn't be driving drunk. Yeah, they shouldn't. That doesn't mean in an alleged land of the free that you get to forfeit your Fourth Amendment right because you went on this road and the cops decided to post up there and check every single car that drives by because they have no reasonable suspicion to ask you for ID, to make you slow down under the speed limit, to stop you, to have you open your window. They're, but they do it. I don't think that in an alleged land of the free that should exist, but it does in many places.
All right, so weed's bad for your heart. Well, let's talk about some color dye issues that are going around there, and maybe link it to Pride Month. Well, I mean, I stumble in my speech. It's called Life Month here on the American Radicals podcast. So I saw this story from the New York Post about Skittles. Taste the rainbow, and there's a nice pride flag in the background there to get us into this story here, which is not about the LGBTQ rainbow kamikazes, but it's about some food preservatives or food dyes. Okay. Skittles will no longer be made with titanium dioxide, which just on its face, don't eat Skittles. Like, I don't even know what it is, but you shouldn't be eating titanium. Titanium dioxide is an additive typically used to make food look whiter and opaque. The MAHA Commission, chaired by U.S. Health and Human Services Secretary RFK Jr., released a report last week assessing chronic diseases, particularly those suffered by children. It said that this additive, titanium dioxide, is, quote, widely used in a range of candies and sauces and may cause cellular and DNA damage, unquote. Now, I don't know what kind of impact this is going to have, Garrett, because there are 4,362 different types of candies that have titanium dioxide in them, Skittles being one of them. Which leads me to what I wanted to connect it to. I think Skittles is going for the next thing, right? They are owned by Mars Wrigley. It's a big company. They're playing in the same pool as the State Street and the BlackRock, and they don't want to get a bad score, which reminded me of a couple of different stories where in this month particularly, Skittles, they were not going to have any color. There's probably lots of titanium dioxide in this brand of Skittles because they took all the color out and made them all look clear. And you can see from the candy wrapper, it says only one rainbow matters during Pride
Oh
Month.
gosh.
And they did that in support of GLAAD, GLAAD being GLAAD, stands for Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. It's like the Anti-Defamation League, which basically characterizes Moms for Liberty, very much like Southern Poverty Law Center, as a terrorist hate group. But this article from 2 years ago, we're not talking ancient history, and we alluded to the fact that this was a tactical retreat during this month. This is not a total victory on our part. 2 years ago, Quote, today, Skittles announced that this Pride Month, it is giving up its signature rainbow by removing the iconic colorful branding to celebrate the LGBTQ community and highlight that during Pride, only hashtag one rainbow matters. For the first time in the US, the brand is releasing limited edition Skittles Pride packs, which will feature colorless design with colorless candies inside. The only solace I take in this is that it probably was loaded with titanium dioxide and poisoned way more people.
Does anybody have an alternative to Skittles? Because apparently we can't eat Skittles anymore. And Skittles, for my whole life, has been one of my favorites. Maybe that's our next endeavor, Steve. We start to try to battle a company like Mars Candy because we can't be buying this crap anymore. I mean, it just is so absurd. I don't know what the current percentage of the population is LGBTQ. I know it's not very
Really?
many.
Versus who declares it? I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
basically 95% of people if you watch TV right now.
Right, right. And everybody's all in on this. And again, I just can't get away from the fact of they'll love to scream separation of church and state to you or to me, but this clearly cultic existence of even being an ally to LGBTQ types has just taken over. And nobody wants it. Or nearly nobody wants it. But these people, these companies, they just continue to ram it down your throat. And this, I don't know how I forgot or missed this when they took all the colors off away from their, like, really, Skittles? You're that far into the cult that you're just gonna make everybody abide by the pride. It's just
It
so
wasn't
ridiculous.
limited to that. A joining piece from The Times. When is this one dated? Yeah, again, 2023, August of 2023, less than 2 years ago. Titled Skittles Packaging Opens a New Front in LGBT Culture Wars. That's kind of
Mm.
discriminatory. They didn't include the Q's or the two S's. But the limited edition packaging, which was designed by LGBTQ artists, I guess they got the Q in there later on in the article, for Pride Month, it features slogans such as, quote, Black Trans Lives Matter, hashtag joy is resistance, so straight up Marxism, be generous with your love, I guess to the children, and express yourself spelled URSELF, because maybe they go to San Francisco public schools and get 21% to graduate. And for those listening, there's different examples of the wrappers that they had that had the no colors for Pride. I'm really disturbed by the one that has the mouth with the full rainbow coming out of it, including a brown stripe, which includes Black Trans Lives, and a gold tooth, because we're going to stereotype Black people apparently over at Skittles. Like, what is wrong with these people?
Dude, I wish I had a reasonable answer for that question because I can't figure it out. And also, I will not be convinced that all of the people on the Skittles marketing team or working at the Mars factory, how many of them actually want this? How many of them actually are like, yeah, this is great. Let's hire some LGBTQ artists to design our wrappers. Or or are they like most, just, well, this is my job and this is what they told me I've got to do, and I can't do anything different because I'm too worried about losing my job. And look, part of me doesn't blame them, especially after the last nearly 3 years now. It's hard to say, just do the right thing. The right thing isn't always easy.
How much you want to bet that the artist who designed these was some sort of like Black trans little person Eskimo owned business? It totally was not somebody off of Madison Avenue. That's enough of the rainbows and the Skittles and the wokeness. Let's go over to FDA, and I've got some good, maybe, and I've got some bad because we give you the straight dope here, not the weed. But FDA is launching a new AI tool. We talked about the integration of the various uh, uh, databases that Palantir is doing, and the concerns that we have that they might be building some databases up on American citizens. Uh, I don't think that that is going to play out here. I think this actually might be a good use of a tool at FDA. This is an announcement of this tool called ELSA.
Today, the FDA has launched a new AI tool agency-wide called ELSA to modernize how the agency functions. Following a very successful pilot program with our scientific reviewers, we announced a goal date of June 30th to implement the AI tool agency-wide. Today, we met that goal ahead of schedule and under budget, thanks to the willingness and collaboration of our in-house scientific leaders across the centers. The agency is using ELSA to expedite clinical protocol reviews and reduce the overall time to complete scientific reviews.
All right, that's enough. That's Marty Makary or Macari. I think it's Makary, but announcing this tool, this thing is called ELSA. So FDA launched ELSA, a generative artificial intelligence tool designed to help employees from scientific reviewers to investigators work more efficiently. Okay, I'm on board for that. I do come from a different work experience, and I know some guys that have some kind of complex artificial intelligence that does financial analysis, and all I'm thinking is you guys should sell it to the government. You could basically put a whole bunch of financial analysts out of work. But ELSA here offers a secure platform for FDA employees to access internal documents while ensuring all the information remains within the agency. So we're not doing the Palantir sharing across one agency to another. Just going to be like more of an efficiency thing. FDA already using ELSA to accelerate clinical protocol reviews, shorten the time needed for scientific evaluations, identifying high priority inspection targets. Okay, not a Luddite. I think this is a good thing. I think that using the technology here, if we can speed up the assessing of, I don't know, the latest drug or food, whatever it is, so there's a limited delay, will entice private industry to bring products to market knowing that like it's not going to be a 10-year process and might be more innovative, a chance to take more of a chance because they know that like, hey, once we are pot committed on this thing, like we have to make sure that we have everything sewn up. Whereas when it comes to like medical stuff, like you might be saying like there's a critical need here, like we need to take a chance in order to cure some disease.
Yeah, this is again that balance between good and evil. What people are going to be using a lot of this new technology and innovation for, to me, at least based on this information, sounds like a net positive for everybody involved. And then I guess my logical next step or question is, how do we ensure that organizations, government entities, businesses, corporations stay within the guardrails of continuing to use this technology, AI, whatever it may be, for positive purposes? Because there's always that slippery slope. There's always that devil on this shoulder saying, hey, but you could just steer it this way and use it for this, bad reason. But yeah, with just based off of that video and the way they're explaining where they're going to take this, sounds like a positive winning argument to me.
If there is in fact the ability to use artificial intelligence, and it's probably impossible, but if you could get it as close to being a ones and zeros, just the facts sort of entity, you wouldn't have necessarily the private organizations in big pharmacy, in big ag, across any sort of food, lobbying and trying to kind of provide some goodies to the insiders who work at these agencies so that they can make sure that their product just kind of like tiptoes through the raindrops. If it's up to the artificial intelligence that's just looking at the data that's presented and says like, hey, it's either safe or it's not, and it's going to do it instantaneously instead of relying on a government scientist who is probably not good enough to make it in the private sector and actually is in a compromised position or has potential to become compromised because, hey, look, at the last Christmas party, I met this guy who said he could probably get me a job working for the Mars company. Like, if as long as I do him a favor, then yeah, I think that this is the route to go. Okay, but at the same time, another FDA story has me kind of shaking my head, particularly because Marty Makary is there. I think he was a stalwart on coronavirus stuff. You have RFK, who's been pushing back on the vaccine issues. But apparently, Reporting from NBC News, the FDA granted a limited approval to new COVID vaccine from Moderna, which had never brought a product to market prior to the coronavirus vaccine. Moderna announced this past week that the FDA approved its lower dose COVID-19 vaccine for adults 65 and older, as well as people 12 to 64 with at least one medical condition that increases their risk for severe COVID, like, I don't know, type 2 diabetes, because 3/4 of people are fat. So basically everybody. The approval, which is limited to individuals who have previously received the COVID vaccine, so again, almost everyone, was granted by the FDA. Newly approved vaccine, which is called MNX Spike, contains 1/5 of the original vaccine dose. So a 80% reduction in the amount of gene juice going in. So it's I guess they're saying not as dangerous, but why are we injecting this stuff?
Right. Well, I don't care how big the dose is. Don't get it.
It's only a little bit of arsenic.
If you haven't learned that by now, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what else to tell you, you know. And my wife was telling me she had a doctor's appointment earlier in the week, and they asked her, like, when was the last time you got a flu vaccine? And she was like, oh, I don't usually get it. And then she said, and the nurse was like kind of bitchy with her and said, so I'm guessing you don't get the COVID booster either. And it's like, you're the person in our medical system. You're a nurse. You're the one supposedly helping people. But then right off the bat, you're going to judge the choices they make. And we've lost trust in the medical industry, in pharmaceuticals, because of the lobbying, because of the kickbacks to doctors, because of what we've seen with our own eyes over the last 4 years since the initial mRNA jabs were approved, which, let's not forget, they were approved for emergency use authorization only. So they weren't fully approved. It was more word games that the government and pharma was trying to sell you and say, oh, no, it is approved. But then when you look and you read the fine print, it's, oh, only for emergency use is what it's authorized for. There was no approval for these things, but they mandated them anyways. They fired people anyways. And so now many of us don't trust any vaccine, quote unquote vaccine, that you want to stick into us. And but then of course we continue to get blamed for being the rube who doesn't understand modern medicine, or the rube who doesn't know how to make positive choices. Like, I know we're not 80 years old, so we don't have 8 decades of experience on this earth, but we're almost 40. And so we've had enough of experience where I'm comfortable deciding if I should get what you want me to get or not. But if you don't just comply, Steve, well, then you're the evildoer here. And also under Donald Trump, and we can't forget that Warp Speed was Donald Trump's. He's touted it up until recently when Albert Bourla was with him, who's the president of Pfizer.
He's a horse doctor, by the way, a veterinarian.
And finally, Trump came off it, but now here you go. Trump's FDA is approving another mRNA jab. I mean, just the win we had in November isn't as big of a win as people think.
Mm-hmm. My question is, how did Madame O'Boyle understand the bitchiness of that nurse through her 4 masks? Okay. All right, Garrett, I know you got to jet out here in a minute, but I would be remiss if I didn't just give you an opportunity to maybe mid-show here, American Radicals podcast, give us your thoughts heading into this weekend, and the floor is yours, my friend.
Yes, sir. So we're moving into new territory today, and because we were talking about tech and Mark of the Beast and things of this nature, I figured in Revelation is where we'd go. And this is going to be a little choppy. The sermon I have is called "When Government Rewards Evil and Punishes Good," and this comes from 2021. So it's more of a topical series, so it jumps around a little bit of different passages, which we'll do as well. But I'm going to jump sort of into the middle here, just because of the nature of what we've been talking about today. Revelation chapter 13. I'll just read a handful of verses here. And I saw a beast rising out of the sea with 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 diadems on its horns and blasphemous names on its heads. And the beast that I saw was like a leopard. Its feet were like a bear's, and its mouth was like a lion's mouth. And to it the dragon gave his power and his throne and great authority. One of its heads seemed to have a mortal wound, but its mortal wound was healed, and the whole earth marveled as they followed the beast. And they worshiped the dragon, for he had given his authority to the beast. And they worshiped the beast, saying, "Who is like the beast, and who can fight against it?"
It's not just a human complex of evil. It is behind that the entire force of hell operates. The enemy is not just sinful people. It is the system of evil behind that visible evil, that invisible system basically under the control of the prince of demons, Satan himself, and all his demon cohorts. Evil operates in the heart of every human being. So there is a cosmos of evil that operates in the human heart. But there's another powerful cosmos of evil in the invisible spiritual world run by Satan. What is Satan's objective? Listen to Peter's words, 1 Peter 5:8. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. Seeking someone to devour. He's a killer. John 8 tells us he's a liar, the father of lies, and he is a murderer. He tempts, he lies, he seduces, he slanders, and Scripture gives us all of these illustrations. He distracts, he divides, he destroys, he sifts, he silences, he strategizes, he steals, he oppresses, he possesses, he blinds, and he kills. And how does he gain the power to do this? How is he so adept at drawing people into his methods? The answer comes in Revelation 12:9, which says this: Satan deceives the whole world. Satan deceives the whole world. Paul told the Corinthians he is disguised as an angel of light, and therein lies the deception. So what we're dealing with in the world is not just a complex of human evil, as vast and complete and comprehensive as it is. We're dealing with another level altogether, not just that visible human world, but that invisible demonic world. And Satan's ultimate goal is to prevent people from coming to Christ. His ultimate goal is to take over everything, to rule in the place of God. He is the usurper. And he has a goal. He has an objective. He's heading human history toward his kingdom. He has a goal. He has an objective. Satan is systematically working to get to his kingdom.
I think that's a good stopping point for today. But we're going to hone on this a little bit, because this sermon, I remember listening to it back then, because it was right before, it was when most of the country was locked down still. This church decided to reopen because they realized we had been lied to from government. And then they engaged in a battle with Los Angeles County, and they ended up winning. But this sermon has been one that has stood out to me for a handful of years now, and I think it's important considering the subject matter, not just of today, but what we talk about pretty regularly. And so we'll keep honing in on that. But I think the point he's making right there about Satan's objective and his goal for you and for this world is contrary to what God wants for your life, and contrary to Christ coming and dying on the cross for us. But yeah, I got a jet, so thanks for letting me get that in there, and I will see you all next time.
All right. Thank you very much, Garrett. And well, yeah, we'll see you back here on Tuesday. I will, on a wing and a prayer, be able, I think, land this airplane here as we're wrapping things up on the American Radicals podcast. No, let not your heart be troubled. Sean Handy style. I've got a bunch more stories to get to, guys. Different assortment, and we're talking about Satan and some evil, nefarious actors. I can think of no better source to go to next than Bill Gates, who I alluded to, and I have a nice little picture of him from this article from Discern Report, which I think took its reporting from the Epoch Times, which is behind a paywall, and I can't get in there to find it. But it's an interesting article as we look at the face of evil. Bill Gates wearing his wedding ring, even though he's divorced, so it's a little bit dated. Most of Bill Gates' wealth is going to go to Africa, according to him. So Gates said this past week that Africa is going to receive the lion's share of his $200 billion that is in his charitable foundation, and he plans to distribute it over the next 2 decades. I guess originally the plan was that Gates was going to live out his existence and be high in the hog and acquire as much land as he can, farmland, and improve his interests all across the globe. And then upon his death was going to dole out the money. But I guess he's instead elected to do the John Huntsman thing, the George Soros thing, and that is spend the vast majority of his wealth on it in his closing days because he wants to see it spent. He wants to really enjoy watching his initiatives get pushed on. So this is a quote from him in this piece from the Epoch Times. Quote, I recently made a commitment that my wealth will be given away over the next 20 years. The majority of that funding will be spent on helping you address challenges here in Africa. Unquote. Gates was giving this speech to the African Union in Ethiopia. Now, he visited Ethiopia because he wanted to bolster ties between his foundation, which effectively exists in order to push his agenda. That is, he wants to murder all the babies and make people take all the vaccines and have people eat the bugs, except for him, so he can continue to walk around with his pot belly. But he wanted to bolster the ties between the Gates Foundation and the African Union, according to a statement from the organization, which noted that the discussions focused on improving Africa's health systems. How could you improve Africa's health systems? Well, they wanted to expand vaccines. So he's been taking advantage of an entire continent of people for the better part of the last two and a half decades. And he's going to continue to do that. And he's going to make sure that the strings are attached to that. Look, you will inject the gene juice into your arms here, or you will murder all of your babies if you want to get my sweet, sweet Bill Gates money. And there's enough warlords over there. They're going to do that. They're going to inflict that upon their people because of the golden handcuffs that they're essentially being offered by Bill Gates to personally enrich themselves. And they don't care about the plebeian swine, the people who are suffering. And look, I bring this story because is there anything that is more, frankly, racist or just demeaning of a worldview than most political elite in our country or in the Western world have over Africa in general? I mean, effectively, you're saying if you're going to push on we worship Gaia and the sun monster is evil, that we need to reduce standard of living. We need to prevent these impoverished countries in this continent afar from using the tools that we use to elevate our standard of living, because we started with burning fuel that was wood and dung like they're doing now, and we were able to progress, and now we can have nuclear reactors and electric vehicles that are essentially coal-fired plant run. But we can brag about how we're green now. How did we get there? Well, we went through and we evolved through an energy usage that they are engaging in right now. But we need to stop them from doing that. Well, what is unique about them? They have a different skin color. They have not progressed as far as the West has because of a variety of issues. But who are you to stand in the way of that? Bill Gates is chief among the people there that's saying, like, look, we have to reduce their ability over there because we don't have to see them very much, so that our world, our globe can succeed. And I'm going to continue to eat the steaks, but they especially need to eat the bugs. They especially need to make sure that they're injecting themselves with these substances that are going to prevent them from having babies and thriving going forward, which to me is pretty evil fundamentally, and Bill Gates is, if not anything else, the face of evil. He looks like a Bond villain. He's very much like the George Soros types, World Economic types, the Klaus Schwab types. All right. Next one on the rundown, and this is not an American story, but it comes from the UK, which we've been covering a few stories here recently because it's our oldest ally, and we are back-to-back champions against the British Empire, which is why we don't have to care that much about them. But I do think it's worth talking about how things are developing in the UK with their reviving of blasphemy laws. So reports from the Telegraph: courts revive blasphemy laws after convicting a man who burned a Quran. Now, you can burn a Quran in the United States. It's considered free speech, just like you can burn an American flag. What's going on in the UK? Now, our individual's name here is Hamit Koskin. He shouted, "F Islam," and Islam is a religion of terrorism, while holding a burning Quran above his head during a protest a few months ago. He's a 50-year-old man. He's actually not a Christian. He is an atheist. He is also attacked while he was doing this by a passerby during the demonstration, but he himself went on trial and accused of offenses under the Public Order Act. Quote from Hamit Koskin, who is the gentleman pictured right here. Quote, "Would I have been prosecuted if I'd set fire to a copy of the Bible outside Westminster Abbey? I doubt it." Like, points for having principles here. He believes in neither, but he's pointing out how one of these religions tends to be protected and the other ones aren't. Now, the Crown Prosecution Service, CPS, that's a lot like their DOJ, said that Koskin was not being prosecuted for burning the book. So they needed to clarify. So why are they prosecuting him under these essentially blasphemy laws? The Crown Prosecution Service, the DOJ for the United Kingdom, said that it was a combination of his derogatory remarks about Islam and the fact that it was done in public. So you can burn their book, but you just can't say anything in public about them. It seems like a distinction without a difference. I don't subscribe to the religiosity of the Muslim faith, but I have to believe that they would be more offended by burning their sacred texts than just saying an epithet out loud. The CPS originally, though, charged our individual Koskin here with harassing the religious institution of Islam. Burning their book isn't harassment, but saying F Islam is, apparently. Again, you can't really hold those thoughts in your head and be consistent about it. They just didn't like that he was doing a public demonstration, and they activated this use. It was "show me a man and I will find you a crime." We're very uncomfortable with what you're doing here. Look, we're in London. The most popular baby name in London for, I don't know, over a decade now, every single year is Mohammed. It's been completely taken over by imports, by immigrants, legal, illegal, who they've allowed to come into the country, and they don't want to risk offending them because they're worried that they're going to riot and burn down the entire country. So effectively, we're going to go after this guy because he's more convenient for us. He's just one rabble-rouser rather than an entire nation who, if pushed for their perspectives on things, would probably like to see a mosque raised on top of Westminster Abbey. But the charge on Mr. Koskin later amended because they were free speech campaigns. They did what they had to do effectively. Now he's been fined like $250, but it's the principle matter. He's not facing jail time. And I'm sure that there will be meetings with our atheists here behind the scenes saying, look, you got to give us a W here. You're not going to do any jail time. Just we'll waive the fee even. Just plead guilty. All right, two more stories. And these are actually some good ones. So first, let's go over to Live Action, Lila Rose's group. And it's an update on a story that we covered down on. Oh, man, it's been a while. I guess Rose is probably going to have to go back into the archives. I don't remember where this one came from in the episode list, but we talked about this EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, and how the Biden administration had this rule come out concerning the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act. Now, the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act, basically, they wanted to make it said that there were accommodations for ladies who are with child that they would not be discriminated against in the workplace. They wanted to link it to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So the Biden administration, though, said that it's not just enough that you should have time off of work to go pump. We have to have a reasonable accommodation. Maybe there's a private room here that mom's back at work and she can pump, or maybe she can get some time off to go to the doctor to get an ultrasound, go get a checkup. Those are reasonable accommodations that can be made. The Biden administration Equal Employment Opportunity Commission made the argument that it was discriminatory if you didn't allow the woman off of work to go and murder her baby, get an abortion. And it should be up to the employer saying like, hey, you got to do the murder on your own time. You can't do it on company time. The Biden administration tried to create a mechanism for women who wanted to murder babies to sue their employers for not allowing them to do that while on the clock. So as it's reported here, this judge has now overturned the abortion accommodation. U.S. District Judge ruled that the EEOC exceeded its authority when it inserted abortion accommodations into the Pregnant Workers Fairness Act and must now remove them. In their arguments against the inclusion of abortion, the U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops said abortion is not part of pregnancy or childbirth, Captain Obvious. And that's a good victory for them. One more, and again, another court ruling. This one comes from SCOTUS, which was unanimous. And that's a little boring to look at there, but it's a Supreme Court ruling, Ames versus Ohio Department of Youth Services, a unanimous decision in a court that features Amy Barrett, reliable conservative, John Roberts, reliable conservative, Clarence Thomas, actually a reliable conservative, and you have Ketanji Jackson. So what is the issue here in Ames versus Ohio Department of Youth Services? And I think it's an objectively good ruling because it's a Captain Obvious ruling. The ruling is that majority groups, meaning people who constitute more than 50% of the population, they are also protected against workplace discrimination. So white people can sue for being discriminated against. In a landmark 9-0 decision, SCOTUS ruled that majority groups, including heterosexuals, are entitled to the same workplace discrimination. I mean, we don't have to call it reverse racism or reverse discrimination anymore now, guys. This is effectively a win. This is great. Now, the background for the story is kind of intriguing to me. Very interesting. The case arose from this woman named Marlene Ames, 61-year-old heterosexual woman from Ohio. She sued the Ohio Department of Youth Services 5 years ago. This entire process has taken 5 years to matriculate through our court system in order for the Supreme Court to say, no, you can't discriminate against a person because they're a dude who likes chicks or because they're pale like @Real Steve Friend. But she was discriminated against because the department went after her for her sexual orientation. According to court documents, her name, Marlene Ames, applied for a promotion but was denied in favor of a gay candidate. Later, she was demoted in favor of another gay candidate. She filed suit, and now it's worked its way all the way up. The Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals dismissed her case, invoking a controversial background circumstances rule that required majority group plaintiffs to present extra evidence of bias. But the Supreme Court said that the appeals court erred in that decision. Let's repeat that. An appeals court in the United States of America said that if you discriminate against a straight person or a white person, they have to show extra evidence. Whereas if they're a racial minority or they're gay or part of the Rainbow Kamikaze group, they can just show baseline amount. And that is the standard that they must prove to the court. And a court in the United States of America, an appeals court, said that that was the standard. Now I'm thankful here that the Supreme Court has ruled in the positive direction and finally said, look, is this the land of equality? Is this a land of the allegedly free? So now we'll get to actually see some effective lawsuits and holding companies and government entities accountable if in fact they do discriminate against their employers for immutable characteristics like their genitals between their legs, the color of their skin, their sexual preferences in life. You know, like a content of character type of thing. I mean, what a new and novel concept, another Captain Obvious concept. All right, guys. So we covered down on full grab bag today. Worked our way through it pretty good. I do have a palate cleanse. Garrett already did our biblical worldview. And as I pledged to him, and as I alluded to earlier, I feel bad. Take a moment of introspection here. I dig Garrett quite a bit for living in Wisconsin, Nineveh. And I think it's time for me to maybe burn myself. So subject of today's palate cleanse is that running isn't for old people, apparently. It's just for the young of heart.
I put on my workout clothes and I did not work out. That's basically playing dress up. I might as well have put a cowboy outfit on because I didn't do any cowboy stuff either. This is what I did for a workout a couple weeks ago. I walked. I used to run. Now I walk. At some point, I guess I'm going to stand. What'd you do at the gym today, Greg? I stood for 30 minutes. It was tough. I shifted every 4, so I'm tired. I'm probably going to have to lean tomorrow. I never realized I walked that frequently till I left my house. My neighbor goes, "Hey, Greg, are you going for your walk?" He called it my walk, like I was 86. No, Rich, I'm not going for my walk, okay? I didn't just take my pills either, and I'm not getting ready to watch my stories.
Oh, I hope I never get to that point, guys. You will see me out there at 86-year-old, just pounding the pavement, making sure that I'm working on my cardiovascular fitness and then just decrying the fact that every car that drives by me smells like weed. That's going to do it for us today on the American Radicals podcast. As always, grateful to have you along. If you haven't already, guys, make sure that you give us a nice thumbs up, give us a follow, subscribe to the channel here on rumble.com/amradpod. And also check us out on @XAmericaNews, on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, iHeart, all across every platform. Trying to get out there, trick the algorithms into expanding the audience and radicalizing more Americans. As always, grateful to have you with us on your weekend. Eternally grateful to be part of that for you guys. Eternally grateful to log in and see you already in the chat. It's a real trip and it's an experience for us. And we hope you have a great and safe weekend. We'll be back with you on Tuesday, 10:30 Eastern time. Until then, guys, have a great weekend.
You've been listening to the voice of the Suspendables on the American Radicals podcast. Follow us on rumble.com/amradpod.